After releasing Bush-era legal memos which had attempted to provide cover if the president had wanted to use the military to run raids in this country or pull people off the street without warrants or suppress free speech or the media, sources at the Justice Department today said, prepare yourself, there are more of these memos on the way, and right soon. And in our third story on the countdown, the new information dovetails perfectly with and may lend critical mass to tomorrow's Senate hearing about creating an independent truth commission on Bush's counterterrorism policies. The current Justice Department may soon disclose more secret opinions from the Bush years post 9/11 as part of an accelerated review process. This according to unnamed DOJ officials speaking to the New York Times. Legal memoranda on warrantless wiretaps and torture may be among those forthcoming. The 9 memos released yesterday, you may have heard, claimed extraordinary powers for the president, like the use of the military to make searches and seizures within the U.S. without a warrant, and the assertion from a memo dated October 23, 2001 that, quote, First Amendment speech and press rights may also be subordinated to the overriding need to wage war successfully. The Senate Judiciary hearing tomorrow on what a truth commission might look like, thus given new impetus from committee member Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Quote, these memos appear to have given the Bush administration a legal blank check to trample on American civil rights. We need to get to the bottom of the OLC, the Office of Legal Counsel at the Justice Department, and ensure it never happens again. The memoranda are being released in part because of a civil lawsuit filed against this man, John Yoo, the Bush administration Assistant Attorney General, the man who authored many of these suspect legal opinions. He is being sued by Jose Padilla, who was detained for years as an enemy combatant, but who was ultimately convicted in a regular, old, civilian, criminal, quaint procedure. Let's call now upon constitutional law professor from George Washington University, Jonathan Turley. John, good evening.
Hi, Keith.
First, to the ones we already know about. Senator Whitehouse described these as a legal blank check. Am I wrong, or is the description maybe closer to something like a legal justification for a police state or a quasi-military takeover of the U.S. government?
Well, these memos provide the very definition of tyranny. I mean, these memos include everything that a petty despot would want, from the military use of domestic use of the military in searches and seizures, suspension of free press, free speech, arrests of individuals without legal process. The amazing thing is that this is the blueprint of our government, not the people we were fighting. But what is really pathetic is the memo on January 15th, where Bradbury finally just says, we don't believe, most of this stuff, that this is just something that can't be sustained. And so you got 8 years of constitutional terror for civil libertarians, followed by 5 days of legal contrition. And it's really quite pathetic. I mean, it's basically an effort of Bush lawyers to say, we want to go back into the bar, despite the fact that for the last 8 years we've been saying that we can suspend every element of a free nation.
Oh, we repent, we repent. How much worse could this get? What do you suspect, what do you fear is in those memos we haven't seen yet that may be released shortly?
Well, these memos weren't written in a vacuum. They were written for a reason. They went to people like John Yoo and Viet Dinh and others to hear what the president wanted them to say. And the question then is, what did they do in response? Well, we know, among other things, that they created a torture program. The question is, how much more don't we know? And I think we're going to find out that this was the mere foundation for a greater edifice that has yet to be disclosed.
How did these memos and the prospective ones tie into what we already know about Bush administration abuses, do you think?
Well, it really, I have to tell you, I was taken aback. I've debated John Yoo. I've known him for years. And I still cannot believe that he would produce this type of work. First of all, it's really bad in terms of its legal analysis. I mean, he's arguing that powers of self-defense, where officers could use lethal force, can be a justification for warrantless surveillance. It's a type of stuff that you send back papers with law students over. And it really does show, I think, the great tragedy of a very bright individual working very, very hard to satisfy the president and to tell him what he wanted to hear.
How this dovetails into the Truth Commission and this idea that Pat Leahy is going to have a conference tomorrow to basically throw out ideas about what to do if they go ahead with one. Senator Feingold tonight endorsed the idea of a Truth Commission, but he said you have to include at least the possibility of prosecution. It can't be a broad immunization policy. If that's part of the deal, can you and I support the Truth Commission? I'm going to defer to you on this.
I have to tell you, I think that we have got to say enough that we are no longer a nation of chumps. You have a bunch of people here, who, many of which are my friends, who are trying to work mightily hard to avoid what they know they are morally and legally obligated to do. Now, what this shows is it was never a question about political power. It was the lack of personal conviction. And so it's up to the rest of us to say, if President Obama means it, that no one's above the law, we need a special prosecutor and we need to investigate, not another commission.
Okay, that's 2 votes for that. Jonathan Turley of George Washington University, as always, great thanks. And I know my opinion is in good hands with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.